Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of Encourage. So happy that you could join me today. Um, Today is a different kind of video. I'm trying to be open and transparent these days. And this is something that I've been, dealing with behind the scenes. And I was ready to get it out and talk to you guys about it because I really feel as though this information can truly, truly impact somebody's life and help them in the end. So, today's episode is called Our Spectrum. I have two kids, one son, one daughter. My son is 5 and my daughter is 1. And, I had a very traumatic labor and delivery with my son. I kind of talked about it on my other YouTube channel, but I'll just give you a quick backstory if you guys don't know what happened. So basically, during one of the blood tests that you have to take early on in your pregnancy, one of those blood tests came back slightly elevated and it caused me to be classified as a high risk pregnancy. So basically, what that means is I had to be monitored more than typical pregnancies. So I was going to the doctor twice a week. I had multiple ultrasounds just so they could make sure that everything was okay. I don't remember the name of the test, but I just know it classified me as a high risk pregnancy. So, they would monitor his heart rate. I would go a couple times a week and everything seemed to be fine. Um, there were no red flags that my doctor identified during the pregnancy. So they went ahead and set a date to induce me because they were saying, after this certain point, baby really doesn't grow anymore. So that date for me, he was actually supposed to be born on St. Patrick's Day, but he was born March 13th, 2017. And everything was fine. I got induced. My contractions were terrible. I mean, contractions are bad already, but like when they induce you, I feel like it's worse. Anyway, so I was having contractions and everything, and it was time for me to push, and I was pushing and I was going along. I had the epidural at this point, so I was good, couldn't feel my legs, nothing. And then, I pushed him out and they put him on my chest and he was not breathing. He was not breathing. And, it kind of went silent in the room. And my mom said, "Why is he not crying?" And I'm just out of it, because I'm on the drugs that they gave me. So, and I don't really know what to expect because I've never had a baby before. So, my mind wasn't there. But as soon as my mom said it, all the attention went to TJ. So they immediately took him off of my chest and got him over to some experts. They were in the room. They had him on some kind of table with a light. I don't know. And they were just trying to help him breathe. And he would take a breath here and there. Like you could tell he was trying, but it just wasn't there. So there was a strong possibility that he couldn't make it. But he did, by the grace of God. And if you see my baby boy, then you wouldn't even know what he been through. Like even telling this story just gives me chills because I mean, it was only by the grace of God that he really made it because he was having a hard time breathing for 10 minutes. I don't know no baby that can, I don't know any babies that could have survived that. So it was solely the grace of God that he made it. And I'm so grateful. So after they finally got him hooked up to what he needed, they had to transport him to another hospital actually, because they didn't have the tools that they needed to properly treat him at the hospital that I was at. So they transferred him to another one in a baby ambulance. But I had to stay at the first hospital, which was devastating. So I had to spend like 24 hours without him um, in this other hospital because they wouldn't let me leave. Finally, they let me leave, and I went to go stay at the other hospital with him. They gave me a room. Um, and they had him on a cooling blanket. So I'm not a doctor, I can't really explain the technical details of what really was going on. But basically, how they explained it to me was his brain needed time to repair itself because he did have a brain bleed when you are not breathing. That can happen. So he had a small brain hemorrhage and his brain needed to repair itself. So on the cooling blanket, it kind of shuts everything else down, just cools everything else down. So the brain is not really focused on the rest of your body, it's just focused on repairing itself. So he was on that for a week and he was on antibiotics for 2 weeks. And basically, the doctor came and they said, your placenta was infected. We don't know the cause of the infection, but that's what made him sick. And that's why he had difficulties at birth because my placenta was infected, but I wasn't sick. So I still really don't have closure um, about that, but it's all God's plan. So I'm not going to continue to ponder on that because I still got my baby and that's what matters. So they said the placenta was infected, and the doctor also said that there was a chance that my son could be disabled. And at 19, 20 years old, you hear a doctor tell you that your baby could be disabled. I mean, that's rough. That's real rough. And yeah, I was mature for my age, but still not that mature to be able to take that in and really process it. So I was stressed. Tyler was stressed. Um, there was a lot of feeling of guilt and shame, me for myself. And I ended up having postpartum depression or baby blues. It didn't evolve into full depression, I would say, but it was a very traumatic experience and I needed therapy. Um, so we'll get to that point. But so, after the doctor told us that Um, he was in the NICU for 2 weeks and I caught the flu. So I couldn't even see him the last week barely because I had the flu and you can't be around babies if you got the flu. And I got the flu shot, but I'm not even going, we're not even going to talk about that. Anyway, back to the story. So after his antibiotics, he was free to come home with us. Um, and they have a program here in Georgia. I don't know about other states, but it's called Babies Can't Wait. So because all of those things happened after he was born, Babies Can't Wait was assigned to TJ to kind of help him and monitor him and just make sure that he was hitting all the milestones that he was supposed to, just based off of that traumatic experience that he went through. So he was in that for maybe like 3, 4, 5 months, and they dismissed his case because he was doing everything that he was supposed to do. And I mean, I was just over the moon, like, oh my God, like not only did he survive, but he is thriving. You know what I'm saying? So it was a beautiful thing. And, but it was still kind of like in the back of my mind, like I still need to just pay attention and make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to make sure he is continuing on this path. So then he gets a little older. Um, as time passes, he was not really talking. He was a very, very quiet baby, unless he was crying, but like words and babbling and things like that, he didn't really do any of that. And so, we took him to the pediatrician and we found out that he had a tongue tie. And if you don't know what that is, there's like a little connective tissue underneath your tongue. But his was very, very short. Like he could not even stick his tongue out of his mouth. And he also needed ear tubes. Um, and that's just like when your ears are not draining properly, you get fluid buildup and you can't hear. So not only could he not really move his tongue, he couldn't hear. So if you can't hear, I mean, it's all of that needs to be working in order for babies to uh, talk. So we got all of that taken care of. And of course, there was a delay, but we just, you know, associated with the fact that he had a tongue tie and that he needed ear tubes. Um, I think he was like past one, maybe closer to two, when he said his first like real word. Like he said, dog, woof, woof. And oh my God, I was shouting for joy. I was so happy that he said something because he was so quiet. Um, and I was doing like flashcards with him. We were watching videos for words and sound, everything that I could. Until he said his first words. And that was like a major milestone for us. So we continued to monitor. And, as he got older and older, his pediatrician was saying, he should have a little bit more words. He should have more words. He should have more words. And I'm like, well, this happened and this happened. And, maybe it's just this, maybe it's just that. So that's when like the denial started to kick in. But once he was two, and he still really wasn't talking, I was like, okay, something's going on. So then we just got him speech therapy. I was like, all right, this is cool. We're going to do this. Whatever I got to do to help my baby is what I'm going to do. But we still just thought it was from the tongue tie and the ear tubes. Um, so he was going to speech therapy, and it was helping a little bit. And then he turned 3, and he's just still wasn't communicating on a level um where he should be. And then we started noticing other things, like he really didn't make eye contact, wasn't very like attentive when you spoke to him. So I can't remember I think what happened was one of our friends at the time, their daughter was kind of showing the same things, but she was a lot older than TJ. And it turned out that she had autism. And I think that really sparked, the thought in my mind that maybe TJ has autism. And, it was just an internal thought that I kept to myself. I didn't really talk to Tyler about it. I really didn't talk to my mom or Tyler's mom or anybody about it, because that was a hurtful thought, to think that, your precious baby, your child is disabled. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. And I ended up getting back in contact with Babies Can't Wait, because I felt like, something just wasn't right. So I got in contact with them, and they were saying, well, he's 3 years old now. So now we're going to transfer you over to the special needs in the public school system, um, to get him tested just for special needs, not anything in particular. So I went through that process with the public school system to get him tested to see if classified as special needs. And he did. And that was a very challenging day, because I felt like I was doing all that I can. I did everything right. Like, where did I go wrong? Um, how could this happen to me? That was a big one. How could this happen to me? How could this happen to my son? And there are a lot of kids in my family, and I've seen a lot of pregnant women women go through pregnancy in my family, and never had I experienced or even saw anyone go through anything like this. So it was like, what did I do wrong? But at the end of the day, I kept pushing because ultimately it didn't matter. After I cried and I was asking God why and going back and forth with myself, I realized that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's disabled or not. He's still my son. I still love him the same. And everybody else is just going to have to get with the program. And if you can't, there's the door. That's it. And that's all. Now, I'm not saying that it was easy to get to that point, but I still had the end goal in mind. I need to do whatever I need to do to make sure that my son lives a full, thriving, successful life to the best of his ability. So at that point, he was placed in a special needs pre-K class, and he was getting on the bus and going to school. I still didn't really talk to many people about it, just because I was still processing it. But yeah, so we did that, and he was in that class for about a year, and we're like thinking, okay, we'll just catch him up. He just needs to catch up. It's just a speech. He'll grow out of it, like after he's in this class for a little while, he'll go to regular school and it'll be fine. Um, but then, you know, I took him to a neurologist to get his brain scanned just to make sure that his brain was okay from the bleed from when he was born. And they said that, he has scar tissue, just like if you get, scrape your knee and you get a scab, that's kind of what it looks like. And there's nothing that they could do about that. So then the neurologist, was observing him, and she said, have you ever thought about getting him tested for autism? And I was like, no, no, no. I don't think that that's necessary. And Tyler also was very against it. His thought process was, okay, if he has autism, what is putting a label going to do? He's already in special needs pre-K. He's already getting speech therapy. What more can putting a label on our son do for him? And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to do it. And I did it in September 2021. My son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And that was that. I mean, it was very emotional experience. Um, I was crying a lot that day, but I did what I had to do. And, they sent me home with like a packet of like papers for next steps. But I'm going to be honest, just like the first couple of days after they told me that, I just, I didn't do anything. Like I didn't make any calls I needed to make. They said that maybe you should join Facebook group, like telling me all these things. I didn't do any of that. I really just sat with it and really tried to process it. And then like after this point, I knew that I needed to start therapy again, um, because it was hard. It was hard. I went through a whole bunch of emotions. I was sad. I was mad. I felt guilty. I was in denial still, like they don't know what they're talking about. And, you know, I could say, oh, well, I got over it. I really didn't. I'm still processing it today as new things arise and he gets older. But I did come to a point where I realized that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people think of me. It doesn't matter what people think of him. He is my son. God gave him to me, and nothing happens by accident. So this was destined to be. And it doesn't matter. I love him the same. And I will always love him the same, no matter what, autism or not, doesn't matter. So now I kind of want to switch gears and talk to people who may be going through the same thing, or maybe in denial about their child, or seeing some signs and just brushing it off. I want to say to you, please don't ignore the signs. Please don't, because the key to ensuring that your child can still have a full life, a successful life, a thriving life, is early intervention. So if you suspect, I would get tested right away, because there are a ton of resources out here for children that suffer from autism spectrum disorder. And it may be very hard, but you have got to just find somebody that's going to support you through the process and go through the process, because it's so important that you get your resources that you need early to ensure that they can be the best that they can be. It's really about them. It's not about you. You can't make it about you. It's got to be about them, and making sure that they have everything that they need. So you know I now have TJ in some different therapies. He's still in special needs pre-K, and he's still in speech therapy, and he's progressing. He's progressing. And I'm not even really putting my expectations on him. You know, I'm grateful for the things that he's capable of. And we're still working on the goals that he hasn't quite reached yet, but we'll get there, and he'll get there on his own time. And I thank God every day for allowing TJ to still be here with us, because it could have been a different turnout, to be honest. But I'm grateful, and I'm happy that I'm able to sit here and talk to you today about it. I really do pray that somebody gets some comfort, or you feel like, oh, you're not alone, because I was feeling like that. And I still sometimes feel like I'm alone, but I know that I'm not. And I'm going to practice what I preach. I am going to find me, a Facebook resource group, or meet some other mommies out there who are going through the same thing. And I'm going to continue living my life. TJ is going to continue living his life. And we're a family no matter what, and that's what matters. I really appreciate you guys for joining me today. Listen, if you have any questions, if you want to chat, if you need to talk, like, hey girl, I need some advice on this, I'm here. I'm here. You know how to find me. You can comment to me on YouTube. You can DM me on Instagram. Hey, you can email me, because I want to be there for you guys. I really do. I really do. I truly want to be there for you guys, because you're not alone in this. And again, I appreciate you for joining me today. And we'll talk soon. Until next time. Bye.